Welcome back to Lacking Historian. I'm Lucas Berry. Today we examine the sinking of the RMS Titanic, from the moment the ship struck the iceberg to when she slipped beneath the waves. Let's begin. Titanic struck the iceberg at 11:40 p.m. ship's time. She struck on her starboard side and water started filling 5 of her watertight compartments, sealing her fate. Titanic was designed to stay afloat with 4 compartments breached, but not 5. That would take her down. Second Officer Murdoch ordered a maneuver known as a port around in an attempt to avoid a collision. The bow of the ship was turned to port and the engines run in reverse, and then as the ship passed, or in this case scraped, the iceberg, the bow was turned to starboard, bringing the stern to port so as to not scrape the iceberg along the whole side of the ship. This move was, as we all know, unsuccessful. Titanic began to sink bow first, and at first many people didn't believe she was actually sinking, since many in the upper decks hardly felt the collision or simply thought it was something such as the ship throwing a propeller blade. Below deck it was much more serious. Titanic was designed with 16 compartments below deck, with each being separated by a bulkhead that ran the width of the ship. These bulkheads were not sealed at the top, so if too many were flooded, water could spill over the top and drag the ship down as it does so, and that is exactly what happened. Just after midnight, Captain Smith ordered the lifeboats uncovered and the passengers awakened. Passengers were not told the ship was sinking, but rather to put on their life vests and go to the boat deck. Many took it as just a joke. Titanic had 20 lifeboats that would carry just over half the people on board, and as bad as that was, it wasn't uncommon. Lifeboats at that time were only seen as a means to ferry passengers from a stricken ship to a rescue ship, not to hold everyone at once. Loading the lifeboats got underway at about 12:20 a.m. Both Murdoch and Lightoller took the women and children order differently. Murdoch took it to be women and children first, and on the starboard side, men were allowed in the boats only if all women and children nearby had been boarded. Lightoller, meanwhile, on the port side, took it to be only women and children allowed, and no men were to board a lifeboat. The evacuation was so chaotic, in part due to the fact that there had only been one, rather minimal, lifeboat drill conducted on the voyage, while Titanic was still in Southampton. There had been a drill scheduled for the morning of the 14th, but it had been cancelled. While this was happening, the ship's wireless operators, Jack Phillips and Harold Bry, sent out distress calls to any ships that could hear. One of the ships that heard the message was the Cunard liner RMS Carpathia, which sped as fast as she could to Titanic's aid. She would arrive, though, about 2 hours after Titanic had slipped beneath the waves. The last intelligible message from Titanic was sent at 1:45 a.m. and read, quote, "Engine room full up to boilers," close quote. The ship's power had begun to fail afterwards, but Phillips and Bry kept working almost until Titanic finally sank. The last lifeboat was launched at 2:05 a.m., and soon after, Captain Smith told the crew was every man for himself. It is widely believed that after that, Smith moved to the bridge right before Titanic started her final plunge, going down with its ship. Titanic slipped beneath the waves at 2:20 a.m. on April 15th, 2 hours 40 minutes after colliding with the iceberg. She took 1,496 souls down with her. As she went down by the head, the bow pulled the ship down, and the immense stress caused a split between the third and fourth funnels, a split that went all the way down to the double keel. The double keel acted as a hinge, and as the bow sank, the stern was still above the water. Eventually, the keel snapped and the stern sank at 2:20 a.m. Titanic lies 12,000 feet below in 2 distinct debris fields. The bow is mostly intact, while the stern is a mangled mess. Thank you for joining us as we recall the sinking of the RMS Titanic. Tomorrow we wrap up Titanic Week with a look at the aftermath and the ship's legacy. Until then, for Viking Historian, I'm Lucas Berry.